Well, good morning. How's everyone doing today? You know, on days like today, it's obvious that God made us for relationships. God loves us so much, He wanted us to be in community, together. Friends and co-workers, neighbors, family. God made us for each other and made us to be together. There was an evening about 30 years ago that my wife and I, my not wife at the time, but my future fiance and I sat together in an old Toyota pickup. And we were dreaming about the future. We were young, in love, totally naive, but excited about the adventure that lay ahead for us. And we were thinking about how life was going to be, what it was going to be like, and we were getting ready to eventually tie the knot. And there'd be a day we would stand in front of a church with our family and our friends, and we would commit to live together for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. And that day I loudly said, I do. But inside I was hoping for better, richer, and health. Understanding that it could be just as likely that we would encounter, as we have, worse, poor, and sickness. But God's brought us together because we need each other. And we need to be together. On page 2 of the Bible, God said, it's not good for Adam to be alone. I'll make a helper suitable for him. Now, today's not a talk on marriage, but just in case, a little side bit. That helper, that's not an assistant. He wasn't looking for an assistant. Helper is an amazing word that God gave to Eve. A helper is a word that's used in the Old Testament of someone who saves your life. It's used of God Himself. And it's used of Eve. And so God, looking at Adam, knew that it was not good for him to be alone, that we are made for relationships. We're made for friends and family, co-workers, neighbors, people who come alongside of us and do life with us. In fact, in Ecclesiastes 4, it says this: 2 are better than 1, because they have a good return for their labor. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for labor. And so, Kathy and I, 2 individuals with life that was good and happy, and we were young and naive, amazingly selfish and didn't realize it. But we came together, and God said, I've given you a gift in each other. And these 2 individuals were used to doing our own thing, going our own way, found ourselves together. And God's desire is to create us into one, in relationships with friends and family and co-workers and even neighbors, even the people that we think, I wouldn't want to get to that person very well. God's designed us to be one, to be together. And so what I want to do this morning is I want to talk about this idea of this cord that is not easily broken, and that 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. And look at, just briefly, how do we strengthen this relationship? And then what can we do that will weaken relationships? What are the things that we can do that will weaken our relationship with our kids and our grandkids and our friends and our neighbors and our spouses? And we're going to look at the book of Colossians. And when Paul writes to a church, he writes to a group that's in relationship. It's in Colossians chapter 2. We'll start. And in this text, it's amazing how he wants to challenge this group to come together and to be strong and to be bound together. And so my prayer is that as we look through these verses, God would speak to us as God spoke through Paul to that church of Colossae. And we might learn what we can do to strengthen the relationship. And we can avoid those things that weaken the relationship, because God's designed us to be in relationship. Colossians 2, and we'll look at this first set of verses that are in your outline. And it says this. Actually, the first thing that weakens, we'll do the weakens. What weakens relationship is broken trust. If you have broken trust, your relationship will be weakened. Look what he says. It says in this verse 5, put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature. Sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. Because of these, the wrath of God is coming. You used to walk in these ways, in the life that you once lived. God's desire is that we would have a life that is filled with relationships that have trust. But these things, Paul says, these are what actually breaks our trust. It breaks our trust because if we live in these ways that we used to live, which were horrible things, none of us want to live in these ways with sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. And really, as I thought to that, what it really boils down to, what those things are, it describes me well. It's selfish. These are things that in a relationship are all about me. I want my way, I want it now, and I want you to serve me. Selfishness is when you want to use people for your pleasure. You want to use your children for your pleasure. You want to use your friends for your pleasure. You want to use your spouse for your pleasure. And Paul writes that that's going to weaken your relationship. It's not healthy. It'll put you in a place where trust will be broken. And when trust gets broken, it's hard to rebuild. We can think back to when we were young and the things that we fought over as kids, over that shiny new bike, over that thing the friend had that you didn't have. And it's all about wanting to have those things. I never had to be taught that that was mine. I had to be taught how to share. And Paul realizes and helps us understand you guys can put to death these behaviors which are selfish, which will break trust. And the relationship will not stay solid if these things are apart. If there's sexual morality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry, because these the wrath of God is coming. You used to walk in these ways in the life you once lived. And Paul starts out by saying, be careful, because broken trust will greatly hurt your relationship. If you hear nothing else, understand this. Your relationships plus God are always going to be better. If you bring God into your relationship with your friends, it'll always be stronger. A cord of 2 strands is good, but we'll learn that a cord of 3 strands is even stronger. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And as difficult as relationships are, if we bring Christ into the middle of them, the relationship will be strengthened. But what weakens it? Broken trust. And it usually comes by me wanting my thing. When I want my thing, my friends, my neighbors, my kids, my wife begin to wonder, can we trust this individual? Because they seem to be only about themselves. And Paul says, not what you're created for. You're created for unity. You're meant to be together. It's no longer, I want just better, richer, and health. I want to walk through the relationship. Weakening the relationship is broken trust. So the second thing that breaks a relationship, which weakens a relationship, and that is anger. Anger will weaken your relationship. Anger is a starting point that can get you to a place you don't want to wind up. Look what he says in verse 8. But now you must rid yourselves of all such things as these: anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language from your lips. Do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with its practices. Paul is like a lawyer. He puts down this litany, this list of things to be aware of, things to be concerned about, things that will lead to worse. And it's almost like a progression. It starts and it says, rid yourselves of these things: anger, rage, malice, slander, filthy language from your lips. Do not lie to each other, since you've taken off your old self with these practices. He says this is a list. You want to be careful. The progression will take you further than you want to go. You don't want to wind up in a place where the relationship is broken, but if you're not careful, it'll take you down that road. My anger is really not the issue. The anger is just a part of the symptom, isn't it? You see, he said that selfishness, that idea of breaking trust, is using it for your pleasure. This is more like what I do when I don't get my way. This is what the list is. When I don't get my way, this is what I do. Here's what I want, and when I don't get my way, here's how I act out. I act out in rage and malice and slander and filthy language from your lips. And I just become a person that nobody really wants to be around. My relationships are weakened. And you may say, you know what, that's not how I react, Scott. I'm sorry, that's your issue. But anger, I don't go there. I control myself. In fact, when I get angry, I kind of pull away and I go to myself. And there is that fight or flight answer. Maybe maybe that whole pulling away is not the answer either, right? I don't know how that's working for you. But guys, I want to help you. I want to help you grow, and I want to help your relationship strengthen. But the problem is that I have relationships with selfish people. And I have relationships with people who don't give me what I want. And since I don't get what I want, I oftentimes will find myself acting out in just the way Paul wrote. And it can happen in a community. It can happen in a family. You see it happen in a church. You just go, that's not what we want. But it's kind of what we feel like we can't. It's just kind of like, well, this is just me being me. I don't know what else to say. And God says, I've got more for you than that. This is not just you being you. I've got a plan for you. You don't have to have your anger turn into bitterness. There's not necessarily a problem with anger, but it's what I do with that anger. Do I engage in a way that's unhealthy? Do I disengage in a way that's unhealthy? Do I move to rage and malice and things I don't want to do? Or do I pull away and leave the person by themselves and pull myself out of a relationship? Or can I sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to be angry, but not let the anger go to bitterness? That's hard. Hard for humans. Because I have a lot of things you may say, you don't realize I have a right to be angry. I have a right to be bitter. And God says, I've got a better plan for you. I've got a better plan for you than having that anger turn into something that breaks your relationship, that breaks you. Because those two things will definitely weaken our relationship. If we choose to be selfish and break trust, if we choose to just act out and we don't get our way, it'll break relationship. It weakens relationships, and those relationships won't last the test of time. But here's the amazing thing that God has. And this simple little overhand nod here, what it demonstrates is that tension can actually strengthen the knot. And God says, I will be there for you no matter what. I will help you walk through everything. I want to help you strengthen your relationship. But it's a new paradigm that we've almost put on, is that it's not just about trying harder. Because it's an interesting sandwich right in the middle of these passages. The first part where he talks about the selfish way, using it for our own pleasure, and how we act when people don't give us our way, is sandwiched this little verse that's right in the middle of what weakens relationship and what strengthens relationship. And it's like a hinge on a door. It swings on this amazing verse. And it talks about the fact that God wants to help us to put on a new self. To take off our old self and put on a new self. So it's not okay for you to say, well, that's just kind of how I am. But you'll see in verse 10 it says, put on, this is the New Living Translation, it says, put on your new nature and be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become like Him. Jesus is saying, the issue is just not the behavior. The issue isn't just the anger. It's not just the being selfish. That actually is it's just a symptom. That's the action. The deeper problem is what's there, Scott. And you've got a sinful nature. You've got a nature that's all about you and pleasing you. And so I need to do something in your life, Scott. I need to not just take away the anger, not just take away the rage. I need to have you take off your old self. And I need to put something new on you. It's almost like the old television show that I watched as a kid when I came home from school and turned on UHF. UHF used to be a channel, I don't know where they all went to. They went away somewhere. But there was this guy named Mr. Rogers. Remember?
Yeah.
He'd walk in each day, and he'd take off his work clothes, and he'd put on this nice little cardigan sweater. He'd take off his work shoes and put on these tennis shoes. And then he'd move and he'd begin to describe. And he was like a different person. He walked in and he changed. And that's really what God wants to do in us. He wants to take off our old self, which we can't do ourselves. I would like to say, I'm just going to really try this week. I'm not going to be that angry person. I'm not going to rage. I'm going to do it, God. This week is my week. But God says, I've got to do something in your heart. I've got to have you put on your new nature. And I need to have you be renewed as you learn about Christ to become like Him. And as you become like Him, there'll be a change. There'll be something new that happens that helps us react differently. We may react initially, but it helps react differently. Here's the good news. One day we'll be in heaven. old nature will be totally gone. And we'll be like Christ, and we'll see him as he is, and we won't struggle with sin. I know you can't imagine, because every day we struggle with sin. We wrestle with sin. We fight with sin. But there'll be a day where we no longer wrestle with sin. We will be with Christ. But for now, the challenge is this: to take off the old self and put on the new self. Take off the old nature and put on the new nature. Don't lie to each other since you've taken off your old self with its practices. Put on your new nature and be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become like him. So I'd like to be a whole lot more complicated than this, but I think what it really comes down to is we just need to spend time with Jesus. We need to be renewed and become like him. We need to spend time with him and become, as it says in 2 Corinthians, become a new creation, where the old is gone and the new has come. And as we do that, God will strengthen our relationships. Our relationships begin to be strengthened. The first thing that strengthens it is this idea of kindness and humility. Kindness and humility. Look what it says in verse 12. Therefore, because of all that I've said before this, because the old nature that I want you to put away and put on a new nature that I'm going to put on you, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Another list that looks entirely different than the list we've read before. The old nature. All about me when I don't get my way, how I react. The new nature, the ways that we like to act, the people that we like to be friends with. And God said, I want you to be that kind of friend for others. Don't just look for a friend, but be a friend. Would you clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience? Most of us had children in our home at one point in our life. We're now just have one child left. The others have left us. They've gone away. They don't want to be with mom and dad anymore. We're now young adults, and they're living on their own, which is a good thing. I've heard they can come back, and we'll see. But I remember our kids when they were little. What an amazing gift God gives us. His little kids were just so pure in one moment and so awful in the next, you know. These great kids. We've got these two daughters who are about 19 months apart that are just, they're sisters, they're best friends, they're warriors, they're combatants, they loved each other until about age 6. They still loved each other, but it showed it differently at age 6. They no longer wanted to dress alike what mom put out. They wanted to have different on. They wanted to have their own nature. They wanted to be their own person. They began to fight and battle. And we heard battles going behind doors. We come open the doors, and we just like, are these kids ever going to be friends again? Well, the great news is they do become friends again. And they do love each other, and they care for each other. But it's a process. This idea of becoming compassionate and kind and humility and gentle and patient wasn't there for them automatically. It's not for me automatically, but it happens, and it's happening. My daughter Kelsey is a sophomore up at Chico State. When she turned 18, her senior year, she and her sister had always talked about jumping out of an airplane, which I think is a completely stupid idea. A perfectly good airplane to jump out of it. I understand my friends who are in the service. I'm really proud of you and all that you've done, but I just have no desire to jump out of an airplane. That was kind of their desire. This is what we're going to do. So we thought, you know, if these kids jump on an airplane, these kids are like, they're loving one woman, fighting this, maybe they'll push each other out of the airplane. I don't know how this is. But they, Caitlin got the day off work and drove from Palm Springs back to home and met with Kelsey. And Kelsey and Caitlin and myself and my wife Kathy and Jake, our son, all drove out to Chula Vista and met at a place to jump out of an airplane. Not us. I watched. But they jumped. And we saw them get all suited up, and it was a really kind of a cool thing to see. Took lots of pictures, and then they got in the plane took off, and we jumped into a van with another driver from the company and drove out to a field about 5 minutes away and waited for them. And the plane came around, and we thought, boy, I hope they land in the United States, because Mexico's right up here. So it goes, and the young man is talking to my wife and says, well, you'll see in just a few moments, you'll see the plane come around, you'll see a little dot kind of pop out of the plane. That'll be your first daughter. And then you'll see another dot, and that'll be your second daughter. And Kat's like, oh my gosh, I see it. She's looking at there's a little dot pops out, another dot pops out after that, and they're just kind of floating down, and she's like, this is incredible. We're taking pictures with a little telephone, which is like little dots. And we're taking pictures. And suddenly the dots get bigger. We can see that. I think that's Kelsey. I think she went first. Caleb must have pushed her out first. And as they're coming, they start to do these circles. And Kat's like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. He's like, well, that's not a good thing. That's not supposed to happen. Kathy immediately went from this amazing grandeur to this fear. And she's like, well, and I'm going, she goes, Scott, get them. Like, and then the man said, oh, I'm just kidding. And I said, do not fool with a mom. But the great news about the jump out of the airplane that gave me a little bit of comfort is that they weren't jumping on their own. It's a jump where they have a instructor with them. And they are linked in, and the instructor's on their back, and they're jumping, and they're flying, but the person behind them is really in control. And it's a picture of kind of what it looks like to put on Christ. That we're called to put on a new nature. And when we put on a new nature, we have the confidence that, you know what? I'm not happy with the way I act. I'm not happy with who I am. I feel comfortable with my relationships. But God, I want to put away my old self. I know that I get angry because they don't do their part, and I get frustrated, and here's how I react, but I want to be different. So would you help me to take off that old self and put on you so I can be willing to jump into something dangerous like a relationship? Man, there are people who will hurt you, and there are people who are dangerous. But Christ calls us to be kind and have humility. And that's humility because you're no longer controlling your dissent. You're not controlling much of anything. They would tell Caitlin to lean this way and that way, but that's not all they did. When he wanted to have this ride over, he pulled the cord. And the same way Christ wants to put on us a new self, that we might be a new person. Which leads us to the second thing that really strengthens our relationship, and that is forgiveness. Kindness and humility, which is in Christ, and is Christ living through us, but it ultimately comes out really through forgiveness. Forgiveness, it says this, make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. See, we grow up with the expectation that life is going to be fair. And it doesn't take very long before we realize life really, it's not fair. My brother gets things that I don't get. My neighbor has that new thing that I can't afford. My friends have these great traits that I don't have. It's just not fair. And life's not promised to be fair, but we're called to a place where if we think that we want to get what we deserve, Paul says really carefully, you don't want what you deserve. I don't want what I deserve. He says instead, make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who else offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. I don't want from God what I deserve. Oh, I don't want that. Thankfully, as Kathy said, He has an identity for us. And we are who He says we are. He's got a new thing He wants to put us into, and He wants to help us learn forgiveness and learn the depth that we've been forgiven from. See, forgiveness is kind of like a reset button. It's kind of like when your computer's acting crazy, and I don't know how to fix it, so I just turn it off and reset, and boom, and then it pops up as a blue screen. It's like new again. Oh, I don't need to call Muff. I can just do this on my own. It's a reset button. Forgiveness gives us a brand new start. And I'm so thankful that God has given me a second chance, and a third chance, and a 43rd chance, and a 433rd chance. Because He loves me. And He loves me so much He wants me to realize how much I've been forgiven, so I can then, in this relationship, forgive the other person when they don't live up to what I think is their end of the bargain. See, most of our relationships, I treat like contracts naturally. They're a contract. You know, if you do this for me, then I'll do this for you. If you act like this, then I'll do that. But if you don't do this, well, know that that kind of where the contract ends. But relationships aren't a contract. It really is a covenant. See, I didn't realize it, but when I was in that Toyota pickup with my future fiance, future wife, future 28-year married wife, I didn't realize what I was looking forward to most of all, what I needed to look forward to most of all, what I was really being called to was not just the adventures of better or worse, which of course was really being called to be a bridge builder. As a Christian, relationships, I'm called to be a bridge builder with my friends, with my coworkers, with my neighbors. I'm called to build a bridge. But oftentimes I build a bridge like a contract. We've got this gap between us. It's a problem. Let's fix it. And I'll build a bridge halfway across. And you meet me halfway and everything's going to be great. But if you don't meet me halfway, then sorry, it didn't work. But that's not who Christ is. That's not the nature of Christ. Thankfully, Christ didn't say, Scott, I'll meet you halfway. I'm called to build a bridge and to keep building it until the gap is bridged. If my friend meets me halfway, great. If not, I keep building it until the gap is bridged. My call is to be like Christ and to love people and to forgive as the Lord forgave me. So I must forgive others. So it really isn't a 50-50 contract. It's really a 100-100. I've got to give everything. God's called me to relationship. He's built a relationship because it's good for me. He says, I'm good for Scott to be alone. He said, 2 are better than 1 because they get a better return for their labor. God has great plans, but He wants to put us in a relationship. But we've got to sit and think, okay, God, what am I doing that is weakening the relationship? And how can I take that old self off, cast it aside, ask for your forgiveness, say, I don't want to live like this anymore. What I do is I put on your new nature, letting you come and be with me. So I'm going to spend a lot of time with you and get to know you. I'm going to realize how much you love me. And I want to let you work through me, God. Because I can't love that person. That person's kind of unlovable right now. But God, I want you to love them through me. I'm going to let you jump out of the plane with me. And I'll trust that you'll lead me into safety. Even though I've never done this before. And even though I'm scared out of my mind. Even though it doesn't make any sense. I'll trust you. I'll keep building my bridge until the gap is bridged. Understand this. Building a bridge to someone doesn't mean you have to go back into a toxic relationship. Let me just be careful to say that. If your relationship is toxic, forgiving them might mean just turning them over to God. See, forgiveness isn't always restoring the relationship. There may be some people who are toxic and it's not good for you to be with. But what is good for you to do is no longer be captive to that. And so what I try to do is to say, God, I really want to be you. I want that person wiped out. David in the Psalms wrote, God, bash their teeth and knock them. Do a job, God. But he always come to the end and say, but Lord, I'll trust in you. And so you come to a place where you say, my forgiveness is going to be God turning them over to you, letting you handle them. Not being hurt by them anymore, but just moving away, moving forward. And I really, God, would like their best. And when I know that I can pray for someone's best interest, even though I don't like them, that's a good place, because that's like Christ. But if you're in a hurtful relationship that's harmful and toxic, and you're being hurt, it may be best to have some distance. I want to be careful if I get to be. Not every relationship is perfect. But God calls us to love people. Find the healthy way to love them. But I love that Colossians ends with this passage. Over all these things, above all, clothe yourself with love, which binds us all together in perfect unity. Over all those things, put on love. Paul would write to a church in Corinth and say, love is patient, love is kind. Maybe the list that we hear at weddings all the time. But it doesn't describe a relationship of a wedding. It really describes who Jesus is, because the Bible says that God is love. He's not just loving, He's love. And God's designed us for relationship. And the way that we have strong relationships is by leaning on Him, putting on our new self, and loving others the way that He loves us. And it says in Ecclesiastes, a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. So two strands, two friends together, that's great. Can do a lot. But when you put Christ in the center of it, when Christ becomes the center of that relationship, it's so strong that it can't be broken. Doesn't mean it can't be set back. Doesn't mean you can't wonder what in the world's going on. But God says a cord of a rope of 3 cords, not going to be broken. So here's the challenge. What might it be that God is asking you to do today? Where does God want you to move in your relationships? As you look at that list of kindness, which one is difficult? Which one is, well, Scott, honestly, it's nearly impossible. I'll be honest with you, it is impossible unless Christ comes and lives with you. But as He lives through you and works through you, it's amazing what He can do. It's amazing how He transforms. He says you're a new creation. God has great things in store. And the great thing about a place like Rancho Chapel is that people will come to Christ because they see us loving each other. Christ said to disciples, the world will know you're my disciples if you love each other. If you're the kind of ropes that stay strong. If when a friend like Kay is ill, we love and care for Pat, we love and care for Kay, and we come around to it. I see it happen every Sunday here at Rancho. I know it happens Monday through Saturday when I'm not around. To see what's happening here, the love and the bond, and that's why people are attracted, because they're looking for relationships. We're meant to be together. We're better together. And our friends who don't know Jesus yet, they'll come to know Him as He works through us. And give it to you to share. But the great thing is, you won't necessarily have to always share. It'll start with your actions. But there will come a time to speak. And when it's time to speak, share the truth. Speak the truth. Come and see Don over here. Come and see the seed and bait shop and learn how to share the truth. Share the message. Live it and share it. And your relationships will be stronger. And your kids will be blessed. Your family will be blessed. God's going to be blessed. I pray for us. God, I thank you for the fact that you love us with a love that is enduring, with a love that's patient, a love that's forgiving. You love us with a love that is real. So God, I ask that this morning you would allow us to let you search our hearts. You'd help us to realize how we might get to know you better, how we might take off our old selves and put on our new selves. Put on the new nature that you're giving to us, God. It's your nature, God. Would you do something new in our hearts that would transform us and yet transform our relationship because of that, God. So we thank you for the power that you have and the power that you give, the power you show to us that transforms. In Jesus' name. One of the things I love about these first Sundays at Rancho Chapel is that we take communion together. Communion is a visible sign of what God is doing. Tangible reminder that God wants to transform. That Jesus with His disciples took bread and he broke it, so this is my body, which is for you. He took a cup and said, this is my blood, which is for you. It's for the forgiveness of sins. So just a few moments as we hear a song play, some of our greeters from the back will kind of lead us up front. And if you would like to receive communion today, we invite you to come front. You'll see the elements held in their hands. And if you take one of each, in doing so, you're saying, Jesus, I need your help. I need your transformation. I need your forgiveness. I need you to renew me. Jesus said, as often as you do this, remember me. And Paul, as he set it up for the disciples, helped them remember to think through where they're at, to ask God to cleanse their heart, to forgive them, to become pure before Him. But to remember where we've been and to look forward to where He's taking us. So I'd like to challenge you with this morning as we're thinking of our relationships. We have some friends who don't know Jesus yet. And we know that's not a good future. So as you receive communion, would you pray for them that they might discover the love you've discovered? And that in your friendship, you might be bold enough to speak out of what He's done in your life. Even though you don't have it all figured out as a good speech yet. It doesn't have to be a speech, just sharing with them. Would you pray, God, would you allow me to share it? One day soon they would come and take communion with me. Because I can't imagine heaven without them. So as you're ready, as the music plays and the ushers come forward, come on forward from the back to the front, and we'll take communion. When you take your elements, feel free to go ahead and take them on your own. and our taking with a friend. But then when I come back up, we'll just close in our time. But take communion on your own as you do this, okay? It's great this morning to see a full house with barely enough elements to finish. Because God's made us for relationships, to be together. And we are better together. He sat with his friends whom he loved, and he said, "This is my body, which is for you. Take and eat." And that night he also took a cup and said, "This is my blood. It's a new covenant. It's a sign of something new that I'm doing. Take and drink." God, we thank you for the relationships you've given us. The way you have blessed us with friends and with neighbors and with relationships with family, with this church, God. You've put us in relationship because you love us. We thank you for the strength of those relationships. We thank you for the way it empowers us, encourages us, and the way that you love us through them. God, we thank you for this morning, a chance to take communion together, to remember your love. I pray, God, this would go with us in a new and fresh way. We would understand your love in a greater way. We would see it more clearly. We'd understand your love in a new, fresh way that would carry us into the week and allow us to love others because they need our love like we need yours. God, thank you for the forgiveness you've given us. May we forgive others as you've forgiven us. In Jesus' name, amen. So the challenge is we over all these things put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. May it be a reminder that we are stronger together, but only with Christ at the center. Cord of 3 strands, not quickly broken. May you have an amazing week as you go and build your relationships. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.